welcome to the channel. My name is Reny. I'm a pagan from the beautiful country of the Netherlands, and today I want to discuss something I haven't discussed before. I wanted to talk to you about fertility, specifically the god of fertility, Freyr. Who is he? Where does he come from? How can we honor him? Where can we find him? Where can we find him outside of ourselves? Can we also find him inside of ourselves? We're going to discuss that today. First off, this is the perfect time to talk about this, because now in Holland, at the time of recording, everything is still pretty much freezing. It still freezes in the nighttime. But if you listen closely, you can already hear the birds starting to chirp. Spring is coming. And before you know it, the temperature will be nice. I will be sitting here in a t-shirt, and behind me there will be all sorts of crops growing. How do they grow? They grow thanks to the good Lord, Freyr, the foremost of the Vanir, the great lover. Now, the first mention that we have of Freyr is in the mention of the Great War. There are basically, when it comes to Germanic Nordic deities, there are two tribes, there are two flavors. The Aesir and the Vanir. The Aesir include, but are not limited to, Thor, Odin, and Tyr, and Heimdall. And the Vanir are including, but not limited to, Njord, Freya, and Freyr. So you think, if there was a war between the gods, and if you go to war against Odin, against Thor, it will be a short battle. But it was nothing of the sort. The Vanir tribe held their own, quite magnificently. And in the end, there was a stalemate, and there was a hostage exchange. Freyr was part of the hostages that were exchanged on the Vanir side of things. But nobody disliked Freyr. It actually says in the text that nobody couldn't not love Freyr. Why? Because he is the god of nature, and he is the god that makes sure that the grass is green and that your crops are plentiful and that your harvest is good. How can you dislike such a man who gives you that? And Freyr is also part of what I consider the holy trinity of Nordic mythology. Let me explain. It's not in Christian like that, but basically in the old temple of Uppsala, there were three gods, three big god poles: Odin, Thor, and Freyr. Now, why I call these the trifecta or the trinity of Nordic mythology? They are basically the three archetypes that a man can aspire to. Let me explain. First, there's Odin. He creates the world. He's the creator. Then you have Thor. He is the sun. He is the warrior. He makes sure that he defends the world against unknown forces, against the Jotun, against the giants. And then you have Freyr. And Freyr makes sure that everything keeps going in a good way. Those are the three archetypes. That's all you can choose for as a male. You can choose to be a magician, a wise man. You can choose to be a warrior, or you can be a lover. Wise man Odin, warrior Thor, and lover Freyr. He is indeed a lover. Rumor has it that he actually once loved his own sister. But no, we hush about that. Now that's a taboo subject. So these Vanir, these nature gods, they can hold their own against the Aesir. And the most famous myth that features Freyr, the good Lord, is said to be the myth where Odin is away on one of his many travels and his throne, Hidjeskalf, is just sitting there. And Freyr can't resist. It's actually a big buzzard just flying over here, which is usually a good sign, because that's my animal. That's my freak, yeah. There he goes. Would be nice if you just, could you just, fly in the frame so everybody could see? No. The moment I ask, you just, okay. I'll stop distracting you for a while. So, the most famous myths, like Freyr goes on Hiddenskalf and he sees everything in the 9 worlds. Now Odin is very wise and he can handle that information, but Freyr, whoo, he looks and he sees this magnificent giantess, Gerd, I believe her name is, and he falls in love. But he really falls deeply and madly in love. Falls so in love that he just can't eat anymore, he can't sleep. He's like, I have to have this woman. So in the end, he ends up giving up his famous sword. He has a magical sword, which always strikes its target. But he gives that as a wedding gift, so he could wed this giantess. So that seems like a happy ending, but not really, because Ragnarok will come. Not only in the literal sense, like the twilight of the gods, but we all face little Ragnaroks in our lives, meaning that the difficult times will come and your mettle will be tested. Bad times are always coming, and he doesn't have his sword anymore. So in Ragnarok, Freyr battles Surtur, which is funny in the sense that Freyr represents fertility and nature, and Surtur represents fire. So you could see that in Ragnarok, fire consumes forests and consumes nature. But you could also see fertility as balance. And fire represents the passion, but also the anger of man, meaning that the anger of man will destroy balance inside of yourself. Point is, he gets killed by Surtur during Ragnarok because he doesn't have a magical sword. Now, that teaches us also something about Freyr. Freyr makes sure that everything just grows, and just like everything flourishes, and that your harvest is nice. And how do you make things fertile? I think this tale tells us that if you love something truly madly and deeply, you have to love it a bit madly, because giving that sword up, that's a bit mad, that's a bit cocoa, right? If you love it madly and love it deeply enough, it will be prosperous and it will be fertile. He also has a ship, Freyr, and that ship is said to always have favorable winds, which I think is also a metaphor, meaning that if you love something madly and deeply enough, you will always have favorable winds. That's like if you really like playing the piano, and if you truly madly love it, it doesn't matter how successful you are. If you could just play the piano, then you will feel at your place. If you could just write poetry, if you could just do that thing you do that gives you wings, doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter where you do it, you will always have favorable winds. I believe that's the lesson. But I've been thinking a lot lately about Freyr, in the sense that his rune is Ingwas, like het ruitje. And I've been like really carrying that energy. I've been casting that rune. I've been singing that rune. I've been dancing that rune. And I've been keeping that energy in my heart to tell it, to see if I can talk to it and it can tell me. Where can we find Freyr? Where is he? Well, he's everywhere. Because fertility and love is everywhere. But Freyr is known as the good Lord. The good Lord who takes care of all of us. So I started thinking, that land behind me here, what makes it fertile? What makes everything grow? What makes everything good? Is it the sun? Maybe. Is it like these bugs who are in the ground, who make sure that the ground stays fertile? Could be. I think that if you were to travel all the way to Vanaheim, home of the Vanir, and if you saw the luscious forest, and if you saw the green grass, and if you saw the water and the rivers that go to the lands, I think that you will find Freyr in the rivers. You can find Freyr in the rivers that go through these lands as well. Why? Because water makes life possible. Water makes the grass green. Water makes the crops grow. But not only that, without water, we can't live. So I believe that water is the physical representation of Freyr on Midgard. What makes that even better is I didn't upload a video last week because I was sick. I was really effing sick. I can't remember being this sick. And I didn't feel like eating and drinking a lot. I just didn't. I felt sick, so I didn't want to. I felt so tired that I didn't want to put in the effort to just fill a glass and put it to my mouth. And guess what actually made me better? Drinking a lot of water. It is Freyr, the good Lord, that makes sure that I was healthy. Because Freyr is the lover and the good Lord that takes care of all of us. Heel de Vanir, heel Freyr, drink your water and take care of the land. Gaan we met de goden? Ik zie jullie volgende week.